Welcome back everyone, Savvu here, and this week's video is a somehow very special one, at least for me. I participated in the Ludum Dare Game Jam last weekend, and in case you don't know, Ludum Dare is a worldwide competition where you have to create a game from scratch in just a weekend. The theme of the Game Jam was Keep It Alive, so I knew that I had to come up with something very unique. I woke up in the morning and tried to find some inspiration for my game. In the first hours I already came up with nothing, when finally, as I grated cheese over my spaghetti, the idea of mrcheesy was born. First thing to do was to open up Photoshop in order to create the main character of the game, a piece of cheese that from now on we are going to call Mr. Cheesy. I immediately decided to go with pixel art since I worked alone on the project and I had so many ideas in my mind. For my surprise, I was already really happy with the first design. This really never happened before. The next step was to draw some additional frames, one simple idle frame with a little hand movement and a take damage animation which I wanted to stand out for being extra funny, just like me. With all the frames done, I separated them and created the final sprite sheet for Mr. Cheesy. It was now time to open Unity for a new project and importing the sprites in order to create the animations and adjusting the speed they're playing. Okay, let me tell you the concept of the game. You, as Mr. Cheesy, will slide down a cheese grater with 3 lines. Every now and then you have to avoid being grated in order to stay alive. Ludum Dare theme done. So I created 3 variations of traps, but I am definitely planning in adding some more fancy things in the future. Every time you fail being a good gamer and slide over one of them, you get grated into pieces that will fly under the grater. To make it even more hilarious, I thought about having a hand serving spaghetti every time Mr. Cheesy is processed into parmesan. I looked up on Google for some Italian recipes and cooked a deliciosa pasta. Mwah! This feature got a really good feedback afterwards when I released the game, so I'm very proud of myself for not being serious enough. For the movement I decided to go with physics because of my high intelligence, and therefore I adjusted the gravity values and created a physics material with 0 friction and 0 bounciness. Each line of the grater has its own edge collider 2D that I had to adjust, being perfectly aligned on top and bottom. Here you see how it failed at the first try. After some tries, okay, a lot of tries, I managed to finally have a smooth movement from one line to another. The next step was to create some variations with all the traps you have to avoid. For that I simply created prefabs with the right sprite and colliders and just placed them wherever I wanted. Finally I had to script the spawn system for the tiles. For that I calculated the length, stored it in a vector 2 and instantiated every time a new random grater tile from the array. I surely know that using instantiate and destroy can lower the FPS and gameplay quality. So after the Ludum Dare event, I will change this using the push and pull method for game objects that everyone is so crazy about. For now, I have a trigger component in the middle of each tile, and whenever you cross it, a new one will be spawned in the right position. After all that work in a dark room with just protein bars to keep the muscles active, I could finally call it a day and went to sleep. In the next morning, I woke up filled with energy and motivation. I spent all of it making me a cup of coffee and sitting for a while on my balcony with fresh air. The deep thinking was totally worth it as I designed a cheesy life bar that will eventually go to 0 and end the game. With the life bar ready, I also needed something in order to restore health. Again, in Photoshop I designed a small piece of cheese that will spawn in random positions every now and then. After that it was finally time for the best part, a mouse that will hunt you down the grater until you lose. Its animation consists of 4 simple frames and I imported them into Unity. Here is a clip from the gameplay so far. Notice that cheesy sliding effect? Really epic, right?
Yes.
For the menu and game over scene, I designed a real cheese grater and used its spikes for buttons. I think this gives an extra touch to the game, keeping its theme consistent even in the UI. The time was almost over and I had a couple of hours to create some great looking artwork for the game. I started with a little bit better background and added the logo in the menu scene together with some additional buttons on the grader. My excitement was over the roof when I finally clicked on that export button. After a while, I had an executable and playtested for half an hour. Needless to say that I exported the game another 5 times until I was finally happy. At the end, I set up the itch.io game page and linked it to the Ludum Dare just 50 minutes before the end of the submitting time. I was so relieved that I managed to do all this in such a short period of time and fell to bed like a little bird. In the next morning already, my Ludum Dare page got crazy and your rating and feedback was way higher than I ever expected. I couldn't believe that so many of you loved sliding down an endless grater as a piece of cheese, trying to avoid a hungry mouse. A huge thank you to every one of you from the bottom of my heart for playing Mr. Cheesy and writing such meaningful feedback on the page. If you want to play, there is a link available in the description. The game is free of course, and the mobile version is already in production with many new exciting features you suggested. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed my Ludum Dare adventure and Mr. Cheesy, consider smashing that subscribe button. It really helps the channel a lot, and the motivation I get from all of you can't be described with just words. You are all amazing. And with that said, see you next time, and I hope you give Mr. Cheesy a try. Ciao!